It's always a pleasure to present for the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank. I think it's the organization I have the longest history of volunteering with, going clear back to when I was in middle school, I think. So a great organization and always fun to be here and helping all of you as we work together to end hunger in our communities. So today we are talking about special events. And I'll warn you, I have a very strong opinion on special events, and it's not always positive, but they do play a role in fundraising. So today we're going to talk about smart sponsored special events, and we'll dig into both of those words, and then we'll work to amplify our results. So I'm going to get started. There we go, with the tale of two special events. So go along on a journey here with me. First of all, we have this event. So this is our typical charity breakfast or luncheon or annual dinner. You know, we receive an invitation in the mail, or maybe a friend asks us to come. We show up at the local hotel in their their facility. We're eating a pretty typical meal of chicken and some pasta, and that the annual program comes up with a little update from the organization. We have some time, we eat the chocolate cake, and off we go. So we know what that is. We get those invitations, and if we know the person or really love the organization, we might go. But we're not exactly that excited about it. So let's talk about another kind of event. So this event, we don't even know where we're going. So we get invited to an event. It's a mystery. It says, come support this group. It's a mystery venue, and we will have a fun time. So we don't even know where we're going. So there's this level of intrigue. So I'm actually going to reference a specific one that I've worked to build at an organization over time. This one year, we show up, and it's a warehouse. So you pull up outside, and I'm supposed to be at a charity annual dinner, and here I am outside a warehouse. You go in where it's stated to go in, and you see this. So it's a band playing, and you're entering on a red carpet, and you're actually entering underneath the train of the harpist's dress. It's pretty incredible, pretty show-stopping entrance. And then you get in, and it's empty office space that they've converted to a gala venue for the night. Doesn't that look completely different? But when you look at the costs between this and this, oftentimes they aren't that different. It just takes thinking out of the box and working a little different. So my question to you is, which one? Which one would you rather spend your evening at? In the hotel ballroom, eating the chicken dinner that you've had 5 times already this year, or doing something a little different? So this is what we need to do with special events. We just need to think about them a bit differently. We need to structure them different and not just do what everyone else does, because that's the way special events are supposed to be done. But we need to think about our audience, think about our supporters, and think, what would they want? Maybe they don't want the weird out-of-the-box event, but chances are they probably don't want the typical breakfast either. Let's find some ways to make it a little different and build some excitement around these events, and that's going to help so much. So before I dig into that, let me give you a little bit of background on me and why I'm here today, and that might frame some of our further discussions. So I'm a lifelong fundraiser. It's all I've ever done. I started my career in higher education, spent some years in the museum world, and for the last decade I've been managing the Cultural Enrichment Fund, which is the United Arts Fund here in the Capital Region in Harrisburg area, supporting groups like the Harrisburg Symphony and Whitaker Center for the Arts and many other fine arts venues. So I'm a former band geek. I love that work. But I also started doing some consulting work a few years ago, and now I really love helping everyone really care what they love in the community, so that we can all work together to make our communities even stronger. So I'm a lab rat. I like to test things. A lot of what we're going to talk about today are things where we just I heard about it, I tried it. If it worked, I kept it. If not, I got rid of it. This is my Barry White slide. If you're a Barry White fan, you get it. I practice what I preach, one of his great songs. So everything you're going to hear here today is something that I either am currently doing or I've done and seen it work successfully. So you don't get blind theory from me. My confession is that I'm a productivity geek. I like to read all this stuff. So everything you see from me has like a checklist, a system. It's the name of my company. I do weird things like start my workday at 5 in the morning, get my inbox to 0 every single day, keep bath crayons in my shower for whenever I get an idea while taking a shower. It drives my wife nuts. And then schedule meetings with myself to get things done. So just a few of the things I do. It has now rubbed off on my offspring. This was my son's first to-do list that I found in his backpack last year. So quite cute. My favorite item is snuggle if enough time. So he's 7 and doing good, but this was quite the treat for me and everybody. You probably all think I'm nuts now, but this was wonderful.
Everyone's staying on. They're all on.
I know nobody's left. So, but as we get to some of the tools and techniques, you'll see that this really comes into play because I'm a systems guy. I like to focus on the basics, build a system around it, and then put it on autopilot. That's what we're looking to do. I don't want to reinvent the wheel all the time and have a set system and structure. So we can focus on other things, focus on the work we need to do rather than repeating this process every single time. So 2 things that don't exist with special events and fundraising in general: perfect fundraising and one-size-fits-all fundraising. So what we talk about today, you're not going to be able to take it all back to your organization and instantly put it in place, but there are going to be elements of this that are going to resonate and work for you. Not everything will be perfect. It's not going to be one size fits all, but there will be elements you can take back to either change how you do events, refine your events, create some new events, or really just work to strengthen your events program. My goal is for you to have 3 actionable takeaways, and I think we'll end up higher than that. So this is the point where I would usually kind of poll and see what kind of events we have that you guys currently do. With the webinar format, it makes it a little harder, but if you have access to the chat box and want to type in the kind of the events that you're currently doing or whether or not you're doing events, that's helpful as we go along, and we can talk about some of those. So it's a good time to check that chat box and practice for a little later. So if you guys see that and want to give that a whirl, go for it. While you're doing that, I'll kind of dig in. So good, we're seeing a couple here. We got a farm-to-table dinner in the summer and fall. That's great. Thank you, Joseph. And we'll talk about some others. And then at the end, we'll probably have a little bit of time that we can share some best practices too. So, all right. Okay, so our roadmap today, we're going to dig into each of these steps. We're going to first talk about events and smart event design. What does a smart event look like? The next word in our title we're going to talk about was sponsored. Really focusing on sponsors and why we need to work there and put the bulk of our fundraising energy behind events on the sponsor side rather than the attendee side. And then finally, we're going to do how the session title started with Amplify results. We're going to take our smartly designed event, which is sponsored, and then we're going to do a few more steps to amplify the results there. So we'll have a couple more stops for questions as we go along, and then we can have some discussion at the end. So events. Before we dig in there, we're going to talk about the problem. I mentioned at the beginning that I'm not a huge events fan. No, everybody says, well, I love my events. They're the greatest part of fundraising. But for me, there's just a lot of problems associated with them. So, and here's the first one. What's the first thing people suggest? It's usually a board member, committee member. When there's a budgetary shortfall, when we need to raise dollars, what's the first thing that comes to mind? We start hearing the suggestion. Let's do a banquet, a run, a bake sale, a golf tournament, a gala, an auction, raffle. It just keeps going and going with the ideas. And nobody says, let's do an additional appeal or let's go talk to our largest donors. It's always one of these things. And the problem with each of these things is they take so much work. They create this multitasking person who's probably, I doubt there's very many dedicated fundraisers in your organization. Probably very limited staff in your organization. So oftentimes this is volunteer run. So volunteers are already multitasking. You already have your day job and your life, and then this is the work you're doing on the side. So you throw an event on as well, they can become all encompassing and really take a ton of work that way. Here's what we really want. So with fundraising, people give to people. People really respond when someone they know, like, and trust asks them to join them in supporting a cause. So we want to spend as much time as possible in front of donors having those conversations. And when we're constantly doing events, we don't have time to do that. So we don't have time to do this, and we end up in the office, in the organization, and it looks like this. We want to be spending time here, and instead we're spending time here working through event details, phone calls, vendors, all those details. And oftentimes it leads to this. We just kind of get burnout, frustration, paralysis, and we're just stuck. So events need to be smart. They have a place in fundraising, but it can't be the constant. It can't be the, we have a shortfall. What's our solution? Okay, let's add another event. So that's the problem. What are the solutions? I mentioned we're first going to look at smart events. So this is how are we going to design or change our events to be smarter. First of all, let's address that issue that we had with our committee or board that kept suggesting all those event types. How many? How many events? All right, if we got that chat box working, how many events does your organization run? Be honest. Give us a number if you can do that. We'll pause a second or two. Anyone want to share? Quick little number.
Stella has her hand up.
There we go.
Let's see if we can.
Got 3. All right, somebody has 3. Michael has 3. Patty has 3. Okay. Patty, we see your hand up. We'll get to you at our next question pause and go from there. So yeah, we're hearing some 3s. Okay. Usually when I ask this question, I get some 0s, people that haven't gone down this path yet, and I get all the way up to 8. 8 events in a year. That is a lot of events. So I have what I think is the magic number, and that is 2. 2 events per year. These aren't your little receptions. These are like 2 big fundraising events that we're either going to do tickets or sponsors or those kind of things. We're looking at attendees. It's a big ordeal with, hopefully a couple hundred people. So 2 of those kind of events. Why 2? Why hold no more than 2 per year? Well, here's the formula I've found. So successful events typically require at least 4 months of staff or volunteer focus. 4 months. And that's the way it breaks out is usually it's the 3 months before the event and 1 month after are pretty much, yeah, you can do some other odds and ends, but your principal focus is going to be on all the planning for that event, and then afterwards, it's still, you can't just shut it off. There's a lot of wrap up after an event. So 4 months for one event. So I mentioned earlier that we want to be spending as much time as possible with donors and focusing on building those relationships. So when we're in event mode, we're not focused there. So if each event is 4 months, we do 2, that's 8 months out of the year that we're already having trouble focusing there. So without adding an extra event, we still have some time that we can use to focus on those relationships, build them, and move forward. So, it doesn't have to be 2. I'm fine with 1 One, if you really want to do it, great, put all your effort there. Maybe you even spend extra lead time on it and kind of work on it 6 months, but not quite as dedicated. I love that. But most groups tend to inherit a fair number of events and need to kind of work to shape them. So 2 is the magic number for me. Like I said, it's different in every organization, but I think 2 is a nice goal to aim for. So what kind of events are we looking at? Non-traditional. So non-traditional events, not what your average person goes to all the time, thinks about when they hear nonprofit event. So what kind of things? What we showed in the beginning, that's not the goal. That's what everyone expects. That's what everyone expects you to do. They expect you to have an annual dinner. They expect you to have a kickoff breakfast. They expect you to have a golf tournament. These things are what's known. Yeah, they can perform. They can do okay. But they're not going to have that mystique and allure that really allows you to drive it to even higher results than there. So the event I talked about in the beginning, this event that I do locally here in Harrisburg for the arts, it's called the Red Carpet SOIREE. It's a arts gala, and that's what I said is what we do. We go into a non-traditional space each year, and we take it over for the night. So it's a place that doesn't usually have an event. We partner with local real estate folks or owners. We don't pay any money to do that. So the money that we pay our vendors to transform the space with some lights and tables and things are what you would normally pay to a hotel for rental fees there. So we might spend a little bit more, but it's not the huge dollars that folks think we do. But in doing that, we have this non-traditional event that people are excited about because it's something different. And it's just a lot of fun, easy ways to get some interest, especially if you're in a town that has a crowded event space. When we looked to create this about 5 years ago, Harrisburg had a very crowded event space. I mean, there was at least one black tie gala you could go to every Saturday night almost year round. So, what are you going to do to be a little different and to get people excited about it? So non-traditional. Also simple. This thing's crazy complicated. It actually takes about 6 months of planning, all kinds of moving pieces. It doesn't always have to be that way. It can be simple. One of the simplest event stories I've heard is this. This is a cookout. It can be in the organizational parking lot. Put a chef's hat on the CEO, have him flipping burgers and hot dogs, and really, just hype it up that, we're going to do a fun cookout rather than waste the charity's time and energy on putting together an elaborate gala. We just want to get everybody together, give them a little update, and sell $50 hot dogs. It can be a big success. Just, they would normally spend that. They want to come out, have a meal, hear an update, support the organization. Oftentimes, folks don't want to put the suit on and give up a whole evening. Swinging by the organization from 4 to 6 for a cookout, update with the CEO, a hot dog, they'll gladly still support. They're not supporting your organizations necessarily because they want to come to that event. They're doing it because they love the organization. So if you make it easier, simple, and fun, oftentimes those do just as well, and they're so much less work. All this involves is picking up a couple cases of hot dogs and burgers, strapping your grill in a truck, bringing it to the office, a few details, some invitations. It's so much simpler. There's lots of ways you can do this. Think about what simple might look like for your organization. Diverse. So if we're going to do 2 events, we want to make sure they aren't 2 dinners, 2 sports tournaments, 2 breakfasts or peer type events like walks and runs and those kind of things. 2 different events. Again, that magic number is 2. So we can do that gala, but if we're going to do the gala, then let's do something like a golf tournament. Why different? Why diverse? Because they have different audiences. Oftentimes, the people that come to this are not going to be the same people that do this. So we can appeal to 2 different groups in our donor base and supporters. So try to have two different interests, two different things going on. That shot went about 50 yards past the hole, by the way. So I'm a horrible golfer, but that looked pretty good. So thought I'd throw that in there.
Look good.
No, thank you, Maria. Next on our event design, make it different. So experiential. If you can find a way for them to experience the mission at the event, that is more powerful than anything. You know, a traditional event where there is some kind of mission moment that they really get to experience life for your beneficiaries. They get to experience what life is like, and they get to see the change that you make in the world. Focusing on having some kind of moving experience, can make all the difference. That's what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember the chicken dinner. They're not going to remember if their team won the golf tournament. They're going to remember the story you tell. They're going to remember the experience that you give for them. One of the most powerful experiences I heard about this was I was at a fundraising conference and someone shared. So they I think they live in Central California, kind of in the LA area, and they had a close friend that was really involved with a bird rescue group. And they weren't really that environmental, conscious. Their friend asked them, it was a good friend, hey, will you come to this dinner? It's for this bird rescue I'm involved in. It would really mean a lot to me. They said, okay. It was California, so I think it was like $250 or $500 to come to this thing. They showed up, and I believe he told me it was a kind of a barbecue on the beach, and kind of fun, a little different. So they went that route. It's simple, but it was different. It was unique. And he didn't know it, but they actually were doing a release of birds that they had rescued and brought back to full health. I forget where they had been recovered. I don't know if it was an oil spill or something like that, but this is what this group does. They find injured birds and rehabilitate them and then hopefully release them back to the wild. So this is not a photo from that event, but you get the idea from this photo that they were actually, after everybody ate, they huddled everybody around in a certain area. They took these cages out, lined them up, and then they opened them up. And he said, when these birds hopped out, looked around, realized they were free, and took off and just soared over the ocean, he started crying. You know, he wasn't a bird guy. This wasn't his thing, but just that experience of seeing what they did, seeing that freedom and seeing the work and the look and the joy in all the volunteers around him, it was moving. It was experiential. Now he said, I'm officially a bird guy, and I give $100 a month to this group that auto charges on my credit card because I got to experience this. They showed me their mission. They didn't stand up at the podium and talk about their mission for 20 minutes. They showed me their mission. There was very little done there. There was a little bit of follow-up afterwards, but they let the birds speak for them. They showed their mission. So experiential. Think what that might mean for you. How can you do that? There certainly are things out there in your space that can work with hunger dinners and other kinds of models, but what specifically could you do that could work to do that? The next item to think about is reverse engineered. So if you're putting together a new event, rather than start with a pre-made thing like a golf tournament or gala, think about the end result first. And you can kind of approach this two different ways. Think about what you would want it to do. How much money does it raise? What do people experience? And then build it around that. Or go the opposite way and start writing down what you don't want it to be. Put up a whiteboard in a room and just start down what you don't want. Don't want a boring meal. Don't want, table captains. Don't want to happen in July. Put everything down. And oftentimes what you don't want starts to form a picture of what can actually be pretty good. So when you're stuck, I say, go to the end and work that way. So reverse engineer. All right, so we've talked about some ways to make smart events and what those look like, how to limit events, how to maybe change around some of your events. So what do you do with these ideas? You know, you have 5 event ideas, or you're in that committee meeting and board members are throwing out ideas left and right. What do you do with those? How do you pick the direction you actually go? Well, I'm not going to take credit for this, but my friends Alice Ferris and Jim Anderson out of Goalbusters Consulting in Flagstaff, Arizona, put together this great sheet. It's called an evaluation sheet for new fundraising ideas. And so basically, you list the events on the left side there under description, and then for each event, you're going to rank them on these 5 criteria. So 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high. So potential revenue, how much money do you think we can make on it? You know, a breakfast might be like a 2, a dinner gala might be a 9, those kind of thing. Effort, you know, very hard versus very easy. So the breakfast, again, is probably a 2. The gala is probably a 9. Likely success, you know, can we actually pull this off? Do we have the capacity, the volunteers, the staff, the resources, the budget to actually do this? Uniqueness, that's what we've been talking about here a little bit. Will this stand out from the box, put us outside the box? Will it look different in the community? Is somebody already doing this? And then the one I love, mission match. Does it match our mission? You know, if it's a golf tournament and we don't do anything with athletics or, you know, health, or, you know, there's no mission match, it's a 1, you know. If we're doing something like the bird release event, you know, that was a very high mission match. You know, that was something they were already going to do, and all they did was pop up a tent on the beach and have a cookout at the same time as their bird release. It was really a bird release. It wasn't necessarily an event. They just did that and had that great mission match. So once you score these, you total it up, and very quickly you can see, you know, what's the best match for you. And it takes all those things into effect and really gives you a good tool. So this tool is, I'm linking to where it's at on their website at mine. So productivefundraising.com/resources. We had a little wonky cut there on the box, but that's the word resources. Productivefundraising.com/resources. You'll see today's date, Central Pennsylvania Food Bank, and all of the items I'm going to show you today are available there, either links or free downloads. So we'll keep popping this up a couple times today, but that's the site you want to scribble down. All right, so let's pause a minute for questions on smart event design. All right, I see we had a couple more responses to first, what kind of events do you do? We had a theater party that's done. Also had a few more responses on the number of events. We had 2 3s, a 1 signature event there for Joseph. Good. We also have other organizations that run events for us. Yeah, that's a way to do it too. You know, you don't have to do all the events yourself, especially some of those, you know, cookie cutter events that don't match the mission. Somebody else wants to run a golf tournament that benefits you. That's often great. You know, they coordinate everything. They advertise it to their audience. They come. Oftentimes, all you need to do is show up at the end, talk a couple minutes about the organization, and accept the check with a handshake and a smile. So it's easy. What you need to be careful about those is, you know, sometimes it's good to have guidelines or what makes sense. Occasionally, groups will want to do things that might be a little not matching the mission well. You know, oftentimes it's a situation where someone's serving youth and they might be doing something that involves a fair amount of alcohol. You know, make sure there's ways to have mission match. So there's either an approval process or rules on how they use your logo, those kind of things. Oftentimes, it doesn't have to be big and elaborate, but, you know, a simple 1-pager on how third-party events work at your organization can kind of smooth over some potential conflicts down the road. So great ways to do it, but just make sure you're kind of protecting yourself and your organization and your image. So did we still have anybody with a hand raised there, Maria, or we're pretty good? Okay. So I'm going to continue on. We do have plenty of time built in to the presentation for questions today. So feel free to put them in the chat box, and we'll answer them in the order received at our next break. And then at the end, we can have general questions and discussion on what we talked about today. And we can also call it a fundraising free-for-all. And anything, any questions you have in fundraising, happy to do that and use the time to answer anybody's questions. So we are going to move forward with our second part. So we talked about smart event design, what it should look like. But what I really stress and how we really start to make these better is switching the mindset from not just events, but sponsored events. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than an event that, doesn't have a presenting sponsor on it or doesn't have sponsors behind it. It's just ticketed. This is where the dollars are with events. And especially if we set it up the right way with our SMART events that we talked about in the beginning, where it's unique, experiential, diverse. These are all things that corporate supporters are looking for too, because they have 10, 15 people approaching them every month on a golf tournament. They're not going to do a golf tournament unless, one of their key employees is really associated with it or says we need to do this. They want something unique. They want to put their brand behind something unique that they think is going to get some buzz and really get them some recognition, or something that's just going to be so fun. They want to bring their employees, their clients to and really experience. So yeah, they want to show that they're supportive of the community, but they also want something unique and fun and different. So that smart event design also really helps with solution 2 here to get the event sponsored. So let's talk a bit about sponsor. We need to focus on sponsors, not attendees. Focus on sponsors, not attendees. So this is the opposite of what we usually do. Typically we have a dinner, we create the invitations, we send them out, we're constantly watching the count, where are we at? We need we locked into 120 minimum at the venue and we're only at 80. What are we going to do to drive attendance? That's what we're worried about. But it's the sponsor side that we should really worry about. I'm not ever worried about attendees, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but I'm always focusing on the sponsors. Those are where the dollars are. Having an event fully sponsored solves all the other problems. So sponsors are greater than tickets. Sponsors are greater than attendees. That's where we need to focus on. Let's look at why. So here's the simple math. All right. So we have our dinner. It's a $30 ticket. We can seat 200 people, so that's our max. 30 times 200 is $6,000. That's what we're trying to do. All right, that's typical model we're used to. Well, if we focused on sponsors instead of the tickets, let's say we're still looking at that 6,000. If we got 20 sponsors at just 300, that also equals 6,000. It's a lot easier to get 20 sponsors than sell 200 tickets. But what I find even easier is let's just find 5 sponsors and add another 0 on the end at 3,000. Let's go out. We have a unique event in our community. 5 sponsors at 3,000 is 15,000. That's more than double what we were looking at in revenue before. And we'll probably still get some of that other revenue with some people wanting individual tickets, some smaller sponsorships. But if we aim big, and even if we aim big and we only sell 2 of those $3,000 sponsorships, we're still right there at the 6,000, and we're still going to get all the money from the lower sponsorships and probably still sell 100 tickets. So focusing on the sponsors, math-wise, it's just much better use of time. It's bigger return for those dollars. Don't worry about filling the seats. That's the easy part. So if we sell these 5 sponsors at $3,000, and because we did that, we only filled 100 seats out of our 200, what do you think we do with those empty seats? We have to go up to at least 120 for our minimum. Our sponsors would be thrilled if we reached out and said, hey, thank you so much. We have some extra space in the venue. We'd love to offer you an additional table. Or would you like to bring your employees to recognize them or say thank you? You know, filling seats is not a problem. Worst comes to worst, you know lots of people that would probably love a free meal. You know, this meal is more than paid for by these sponsors. Invite, you know, your friends and family can come and sit at the event if you simply need to fill seats, fill space. We do not need to worry about filling seats. That's the easy part. There will always be somebody that can sit in those seats. There will not always be somebody that will be a sponsor that will sit there, really support it. That's where we need to spend our attention and our time and work on it. It's all about mindset. You need to shift it from filling these to making sure somebody goes right there. All right? We spend too much time on these, not enough time here. And this is what takes the lead time. You know, I said 4 months on events, usually 3 months ahead of time. With some of these events, you need that lead sponsor like 6 months ahead of time with their budgets and those kind of things. We really need to work out here way, way ahead and make sure we're locking these in, because these are the key to revenue with events. Anything can be sponsored. Even if you haven't seen it be sponsored before, it can be sponsored. I've seen some crazy events sponsored, from mini golf tournaments to bathtub regattas in a retirement home with ducks. I mean, anything can be sponsored. It's just about making it a win-win, having the conversation early, and getting your focus there. So that's our goal, are those sponsors. Getting that in, getting it early. So how do we do that? What's the best way to approach a sponsor? How do we begin this conversation? Well, that's the key right there. It's a conversation. People give to people, not emails. We can't just send out a blanket email or a blanket letter to, 100 local businesses with our letter about the annual dinner and then a form to pick their sponsorship level. It just doesn't work. Yeah, we can do it as a first step, but it doesn't convert. We still need to follow up. We still need to go through the process. So rather than do that, I like to really do it one-on-one. People give to people. I want to have a conversation. I want to spend that time with our donors, like we talked about in the beginning. People give to people. People give to people they know, like, and trust. Companies give to people. There are people within companies. You need to get to know those people, know those decision makers, and build relationships. So I simply reach out and ask for a meeting, ask for an update. So this is my template that I use. I pretty much use the same one every single time. I don't reinvent the wheel. It's my process. This is what it says. It says, Dear Joe, I hope all is well and you're enjoying these early fall days. My name is Chad Barger, and I'm the development director of the Downtown Food Pantry. I'm writing to see if I could stop by sometime in the next month or so to provide a brief update on the pantry and our upcoming fundraising event. I think 20 minutes would be sufficient. Is there a good day on your calendar? What about the 20th at 2 or the 22nd between 1 and 4? Thank you for taking time to read this request. Have a great day, Chad. So that's the email. It's always pretty much the same. This email works great for me. I get a response about 60% of the time. It's not always a yes, but it's a response, and that's far higher than other things. Why it works so well are the elements highlighted in color. So first is the red items, brief and 20 minutes. So their fear when they get this is that you are going to be in their office for an hour and a half talking nonstop about your organization, the great work they do. Yeah, they love you, they want to help, but they are busy people. They have a million things to do. So when you say brief in 20 minutes, that eliminates that fear. Now what you have to do is, if you say this, after 20 minutes go by in the meeting, you need to pause and say, Joe, you agreed to just 20 minutes today. We're there. I want to be respectful of your time, but it seems like we're having a good conversation. It's okay if we go a little longer. They always say yes. Most of my meetings are more like 45 minutes to an hour, but they like the fact that, you're being respectful of their time. The other thing that really helps is in the green. So rather than say, will you meet with me? I could have just ended it at right there at, is there a good day on your calendar? So if they say yes, that comes back. Then we start throwing dates out. Then it goes back and forth. It's that email ping pong, back and forth, back and forth. If you don't find a date in like 3 tries, it's just going to die. It seems too busy. It gets too hard. So I like to start it right away. And what this does is oftentimes they're looking at their calendar before they've even really decided if they want to do this meeting or not. If they see that they're free, then they're like, all right, I'm free. It's going to be brief. It's a good cause. Sure, I'll take the meeting. So that's what I do. I always like to give 2 specific times, and oftentimes one of them will work for people. And not crazy far out, about maybe 2 weeks off or so. It seems to work really well. So this is another download on there. You can download this text, tweak it for you, productivefundraising.com/resources. So we're talking about corporate sponsorship. Businesses oftentimes have someone that this is their job. They have to sponsor events. They have to pass out the sponsorship budget. You don't need to worry about, am I taking their time away? Is this an inconvenience? Will they meet with me? It's their job. Somebody there is their job. So all you need to do is make it easy for them. So that email says, I'm going to be brief. Here's the time. It's the organization. It's about an event. They know exactly what it is. It's their job to take these meetings. So just make it easy and reach out. You don't need to worry about it or feel bashful. It's not like you're wasting their time, or they have to do this. I've met corporate sponsorship executives that actually have a quota. They have to meet with 50 charities a month on this. So sometimes you're helping them. They actually need these meetings. Remember, it's their job, but they're people too. So make it easy and work to find that win-win. All right. The other thing you can do to make it easy for them, especially if you have more than one event a year, which you're working to get sponsored, is to just meet with them once a year, but present a menu of opportunities. So if we have an annual dinner and we have a golf tournament, instead of meeting with them about the annual dinner in October and the golf tournament in March, let's just do one meeting a year and present a menu of opportunities. So, you can have a table at the annual dinner and a whole sponsorship at the golf tournament. We're going to package that together, one check, and then oftentimes we can kind of do like a year-round recognition program too, that our sponsors that support everything become the the organization's principal awareness sponsors, and on everything we do, we have a special listing of all of them. So it's an easy way to get some extra recognition for them, which they like. So sponsorship execs love this. So, the ones that don't have a meeting quota want to have as few meetings as possible in order to maximize their time. Oftentimes they have a ton of other things to do too. They have marketing responsibilities. They have to do the social media. So, just like us, they have a million things they're doing. So this really shows you're respectful of their time and finds a good win-win. I've even seen groups willing to do multi-year support this way. So I have a couple companies that say, I only want to meet every 3 years. Just show me what the opportunities are. We'll make a 3-year commitment, and then we'll come back together. If anything changes, reach out, but otherwise it's on autopilot. They love that. It's consistent. It's easy for them. The other thing you can do with this, as you get to know people, is ask when's a good time. Ask when's your least busy time of year, and meet then. If you have this menu of opportunities, it doesn't matter when you meet. It can be at any time. So their least busy time, and ask when their budget is. When do you get your budget approval? If they're on a calendar year, ask, is it helpful if we meet like in November as you're putting your budget together so you can put this into your budget, or do you need to wait until your budget's totally approved, so maybe we should meet in January or February? And just see what their internal process is and how this might fit into it. This is one of the greatest ways to get marketing and business owners on your side. They like this. You're being respectful of their time. putting that together. And this menu, it does not have to be all that complicated. So I typically just have a one-pager. It's got both events. It has the lists underneath it. There's some check boxes. Pick what you want. It's literally a menu. I'm going to take one of these, one of those, add it together. That's my total, and off we go. And again, I have a sample one of those on the website there at productivefundraising.com/resources. Questions on sponsorship? Maria, if we want to click back and see if anyone's put anything in the chat since our last time there. All right.
I have a question.
All caught up on the chat. Maria has a question.
I do. How do you determine the sponsorship levels?
Sponsorship levels. Yeah, so there's no real law here. I like to start, take your ticket price and do it times, whatever a table is. So times 8 might be a normal table. So if we're selling, $50 tickets, times 8, that's going to get us at 400. 400 is not a nice round number, so we're going to change that to 5. So that's our full table. There we're going to add in some recognition on the table. So that's what the extra 100's for. Then I just like to go kind of in multiples. So let's double it and create a $1,000 sponsor. Let's double it again, create a 2,000, probably change that to 2,500, and then double it again for our presenting, and there's a 5,000. So I kind of like to, again, reverse engineer and kind of start at the bottom of, what's your ticket price? Hopefully it's like double your food cost or something like that, if we can get some margin there as well. But start that way. And you also kind of have to know your support base and market. If you're in a small community and know you're not going to be able to sell a $15,000 presenting sponsorship, then don't start it there. Make the presenting 5,000 or 2,500 or whatever it is, something you can get, and then structure it down from there. You can always increase them down the line, but just make sure you can actually sell it. Make sure it's something you can do and you can fill it. So that's my approach, but yeah, there's a variety of ways you can do it, and so it starts from there. Yeah. So
we do have some.
We have a couple other questions here. All right. What kind of perks or offers do others offer sponsors? So okay. So perks for sponsors. So for me, certainly logo recognition at the event, on the materials. The earlier you can get them in, the better. I like to have, if the sponsors are all locked in 3-4 months before the event, then on all the collateral on the website, all the emails, the sponsors can be on there. They like to see that repetition, that ongoing repetition. Other things are pretty typical for me. The presenting ones, the top ones, get a chance to speak at the event, to address the crowd. I've seen groups kind of do giveaway bags, like swag bags, where they have a chance to put something in them if they want. Some groups care about that, some don't, and that's my key with perks. I don't like to structure it as at this level you will get this. At this level you will get this, because they all want something different. They all have different needs. So it's another situation where I like to do a menu approach. So I list out, here are all the benefits available that we're willing and able to offer. What's important to you guys? What do you like? And then again, we have a discussion. So, if it's a low-level sponsor, I'm not going to let them take everything on the list, but we can say, what 2 or 3 things would be important for you guys that you get some benefit out of this, and just put it all on there. So I do that actually year-round for year-round recognition. I have a menu of corporate benefits that when I'm having discussions with folks, we kind of go through it. Some people want to see it and want to have a discussion. Others say, no, we just like to support you guys. That's not a big deal to us. But it kind of lets you adapt and go through the sponsor and the recognition piece. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions right now. So again, feel free to type them in the box. And then at the end, I think we can try passing around the audio and ask questions and provide feedback to each other. So maybe we can dig back into that question a little bit at the end. So, all right, we're going to move into the final piece. So, you could really stop right here. Have 2 successful annual events. They're sponsored, they're smartly designed, they're unique, they're diverse, they're experiential, they're tied to your mission. But why not amplify our results? There's a couple things we can do to take our events even to the next level. So I'm going to share a few ways that you can amplify results. Again, these are not going to work for every type of event. They get very specific, but there may be some things and elements that you can apply to events you already have or events that are starting to fester in your mind now that we've been on this topic for a little while. First, add a peer-to-peer component. So this word gets thrown around a lot, but a peer-to-peer component in fundraising is where you have attendees that are asking for donations within their own network to benefit your organization. So we had the conversation a little earlier about a third-party fundraiser where somebody's raising dollars for you and then basically giving your organization the dollars. This is a little bit of that, but within your own organization, within your own event structure. So the typical example here is like a walk. So people register for the walk. They might pay a $20, $30 registration fee, and then they're asked to raise, $50, $100, whatever it is, dollars amongst their network. That's your typical peer-to-peer event. So why do I say add a peer-to-peer component? I say that because of this. So this is a list of all of the traditional fundraising methods that are used, from in-person, mail, events, phone, all the ways we can raise dollars for an organization. But they're in order. They're in order of success rate, like where the most dollars come from. So I already talked about in-person. People give to people. That's where we want to be spending time. If you look down this list, events, what we're talking about today, they're kind of getting close to the middle, right there above email, below mail. And yes, direct mail still does far better than email. Direct email was supposed to kill off direct mail about 10 years ago. Still hasn't happened, not even close. Direct mail is not dead, so make sure you have that component going. But look, peer-to-peer is even above mail. It's right there. So it is grown and become incredibly successful. It used to be on the bottom of this list, but over the last decade it has really crawled up. And there's tools that help with that, and it's social media. Social media has propelled peer-to-peer fundraising way up there. That's when social media came out, everybody thought that was going to be the great new fundraising tool too. It hasn't proven to be that great for charities directly with raising solicited donations directly, but it's been a huge tool to help people that care about them raise dollars from their own networks through peer-to-peer fundraising. So if there's something you can do to your event at a peer-to-peer component, like, table captains at a dinner, like I said, with any of the sports events, getting pledges on there, any ways that you can get people motivated to say, I'm doing this to benefit this organization. Will you join me by supporting me and making a donation on the cause? So that just helps to amplify it. And it's really not that much more work for you. You get 50 additional fundraisers going out into the community on your behalf. So think if there's a way you can do that to add it into something you're already doing. I don't like to say create a peer-to-peer fundraiser because then it's one more thing. But is there a strategic way you can add that in to something you're already doing? Call participants in advance is our next item. So, typically with event attendees, they sign up, and then it's kind of radio silence. They don't really hear anything. They might get a confirmation email a few days before, just with saying, here's where to park, here's what time to come. Maybe if we really have the act together, we have a preview of the silent auction or something in there to try to get them a little excited. But calling participants in advance can have huge impact. The first part is just calling. How often do you actually get a call really from anyone that you want anymore, but a call that would simply be something like, hi, Sally. This is Joe from the Uptown Food Pantry. I'm calling I saw you registered for our annual dinner next week. We're so excited you're coming. I wanted to see if you had any questions, and also let you know that we still have a few seats available. And if you have any friends that would like to come, we'd love to be able to host them as well. So something like that, not a hard ask, but asking them for something. Also, where it's a huge help is with those peer-to-peer people, with those people out there raising dollars on your behalf. So if they just sign up for your walk, they'll pay the registration. Typically, a week out, they'll realize that this is coming. Oh no, I didn't do anything yet. They do this mad email to like everybody they know, begging them to just send them $5. And then they raise like, $30, and then they pony up the additional $20 themselves so they meet your minimum. That's kind of the typical formula. But they can do so much more. The key is a phone call. So if 3 weeks before the event, you take an afternoon, call all your walkers, and just say, hey, Joe, it's Chad down at the food pantry. I'm so excited you're joining us for our walk in 3 weeks. We really appreciate what you do. We can't wait to have you join us. We have some fun elements that day. You're going to hear about our mission in a unique way. Thank you so much for walking and for raising some dollars on our behalf. First of all, they're thrilled. They got a call from somebody. That never happens. The call was just saying thank you. But what does that call really do? That call, they hang up. They feel good. They say, oh, that was neat. I got a call from them. They really appreciate me. Then they say, oh, no. I haven't raised any of those dollars yet. They're expecting me to do that. But you're putting this on their radar 3 weeks before the event instead of that like last week where they don't really have time to do anything. So now they have a chance to really reach out to their network, do it the right way, maybe use that social media, and really be effective. So they've actually studied this. They study all kinds of weird things in fundraising, and making a phone call to peer-to-peer fundraisers actually grows their dollars by 35%. They will raise 35% more dollars on your behalf if you just simply call them to thank them for registering. You can also say, do you need any support? Can I send you more pledge forms? Do you need anything? You are being there, you're thankful, and you're helpful. And because of that, they will go out and raise more dollars for you. So easy. It's a great way to spend an afternoon just on the phone thanking people. Anybody can do it. A volunteer can do it for you. It's a great, easy way to amplify that element. And it works, too, with anybody. Just gala attendees. Did you see our auction list that we sent out? You're just building that excitement and getting more buy-in before we actually get to the event. Okay, auctions are the final amplification thing we're really going to talk about today. Auctions are typically, a annual dinner or gala component, if we have those. Not everyone's going to have an auction. A lot of people like to do the silent auctions. I'm personally not an enormous fan of silent auctions, just because they take a ton of work, both gathering all the stuff, and then at the event, you got to log it in, all the bid sheets, and collect it, and at the end of the day, it's a grand or two sometimes, so it's just a lot of work for that. What do I want you to do instead? Go out and have some sponsor conversations. That's, quickly can make those dollars that way. But there is big value in a live auction. Live auction. So either if you don't have a live auction, consider adding one. Or, if you do have one, I'm going to show you a couple ways you can maximize it. And the live auction for me, it's not necessarily about the stuff. Yeah, you need some stuff to live auction, but it's the format that is really effective for me. And let me show you a couple things. So we're at our live auction. The first thing I love to do, and I'm going to credit my auctioneer for teaching these, and that's Tim Keller with Keller Auctioneers down the Lancaster market. He showed me this, and it has been working great. So he loves to start a live auction by auctioning off something of no value. So I've literally seen him do this. He picks up a glass of water, and he says, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to start the auction. your bid numbers on the back of your program. This isn't in your program, but we are going to start with this item right here, this lovely glass of water. Who will give me $500 for this glass of water? And they all laugh and say, nobody would ever do that. And then he says, ladies and gentlemen, I need to remind you that we're not here to get bargains tonight. We're not here to Christmas shop. We're not here, we are here to support this cause that we care so much about. Can we start this auction off the right way and raise $500 for this organization that we love? And you can have this glass of water if you want it. Then he starts getting bids. And I've seen that glass of water go as high as $1,200. But it doesn't have to be a glass of water. It can be something tied to your mission. So I do a lot of work in the arts. I've auctioned off a blank canvas. It was literally a $30 blank canvas that I went to Michael's and got, and we sold it for $800. But what it does is it frames the whole auction around, we are here to support the mission. We're not here to get a bargain. We are here to support this. So that's how I love to start them. So auction off something of no value. Then do your normal auction, go through your items, and then at the end, do a fund a cause. So a fund a cause. So literally, we are going to fund the cause, not by selling more stuff, but by taking direct donations in a live format, live auction format. So how this works is, the auction comes to an end. Auctioneer says, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your bids. You've been very generous. I know that not everybody had an opportunity to purchase something either through the auction or in our silent auction or raffles or whatever else you might have. So we wanted to give you one more opportunity to make a direct donation to the cause. Then we'll typically share a story, maybe show a video, have a beneficiary come up and really hit the heartstrings on what really happens with these dollars, the difference it made in their life. Then the auctioneer starts at high. Ladies and gentlemen, you can make a donation to support people like Sally, so we can help more people like her simply by raising your paddle. Do I have any donations of $1,000? And he does that. Then he goes to 500. It kind of works his way down, and you pick up all along the way. I find it sometimes helpful to have a couple people, board members or key donors that are going to make their annual pledge that way. So, if somebody else raises $1,000, like, oh, people are doing it, okay, I'll do it too. It's that kind of herd mentality. We need a little nudge sometimes. So you can't insert fake ones. That's not ethical. But if you can get somebody that's going to support you anyway to make their pledge at that event, go for it. It helps to grease the wheel a little bit. And then the final thing, when they get to the last level, usually like $100, $50, whatever it is, that last level, he'll take a few of them. And then he'll say, today we have a prize for the last $100 donation that is made. So we have a prize. So it can be anything. I've seen like a high-end box of truffles, or usually something you can't just go to the market and buy, but a little exclusive. But, it's like a $50 value or something. It doesn't have to be huge. If you can do it, I've seen these work really well. These are the large format wine bottles. So you can't just walk in and buy them, but they're really big and kind of different. So I've seen, and they have fun names too, if you can see on there. But that works really well. So the auctioneer says, we have a prize for the last one. Usually the executive director stands up and shows it, and then they're walking around the room. As the bids come, they start to approach the person with it, and then another bid comes. So they're running over there, and it's this kind of back and forth. It becomes a game, and typically, can raise a couple more $100 just from people being competitive. And people can bid more than once. So I've had people bid like 5 times to try to get this $50 item, and there is an extra $500 contribution from them. So a fun way to end an auction. I hear great feedback about it year round when I do it. People just like it, and it livens up things a little bit, and also works to amplify results and maximize revenue. So we've talked a lot about very different event things today, event components, ways to design them smartly, get them sponsored, amplify those results. this is all going to sound very foreign to committee members and folks that have been doing the same event year in, year out. This is what we do. You know,
we've always done.
This is what we've always done. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, all these lines that we hear. So, you know, yeah, it's not broken, but it's not growing either. And the law of diminishing returns will eventually kick in, and it's going to start going downhill. So we need to get ahead of it. So how do you kind of make this case? I like to show them the numbers. You know, show them the numbers on events. So the first thing, this is a lot of math, but I'll make it easy for you. I like to get all the ways we raise money on one sheet and to show the return on investment. So for the ways you raise money, if you can get the number of people, your participants, so who actually responds to it, and the non-responders. So like say our direct mail, we mail to 500 people, we get $100 donations. Those are those. And then the income and the expense for each item, then you can run stats on all your fundraising programs and put them side by side. So here's the tool. It's called a solicitation performance index. It has all those indicators from the last slide there on the left. I know it's hard to see. And then going across the columns, you can see all the various solicitations. So this would be like year-end appeal, annual dinner, golf tournament. Each way you raise money would be listed across. So then you input those 4 items in red there in the top in the yellow, and then this Excel spreadsheet, which is available at productivefundraising.com/resources, will automatically compute the rest of that for you. So what you're going to get is that bottom column, that return on investment. It's going to show you where the smart ways to raise dollars are. And what it's going to show is that direct mail and sponsorships and talking to people individually has a lot better return than special events. So this is my recommendation, is if you're an organization that has 5 events and you want to go down to 2, this will show you which 2 of the 5 are the smartest, and it'll also prove to the board that, hey, event fundraising is not the smartest way to raise dollars, because look, that return is nowhere near as good as these other ways. So that tool is there. The other tool is the one we showed earlier, that evaluation sheet for new fundraising ideas. I like to take it and make it the evaluation sheet for all fundraising ideas. You know, put your ones you're already doing on there and rate them on these categories. The potential revenue, it might not be potential, you know the revenue. Is it a low revenue or high revenue event? The effort, you know exactly how much effort those take, probably way too much. The likely success, uniqueness, and then that mission match. Rate them alongside the potential event you're looking at. Put them right there. You know, decision makers, you know, especially CFO types, accountants, you know, they need numbers, they need ratings, they need to be able to see it all in one sheet to make that decision. It's oftentimes hard to sell a dream or something different. You need to really get some data there, but it doesn't have to be, you know, huge spreadsheets and things. It can be simple data that we have easy access to. So that's how I like to sell it. That's the end. That's your Amplify results with smart sponsored events. So I'm going to open it for questions, but if you want a little bit more information, here's just a couple things I have for you. So I do free clarity calls. These are 20-minute calls. You can schedule those right from the link below. It's productivefundraising.com/clarity. I have that linked from the one we've been talking about, the resources side. But it's 20 minutes just to talk about your organization. We can talk about your events, whatever you need, just to get some clarity around fundraising. I'm happy to do that. I offer that to any organization once a year, so feel free to reach out there. I also have a free guide called 5 Steps to Smarter Fundraising. So this comes around because I know I work almost exclusively with small shops, and there are over 20 different ways you can raise dollars, and everybody tries to do all of them, and then they don't do any of them well. So in this guide, I focus on 5 elements that if you do well, you don't have to worry about the rest. Just do these really well. Today, you've sat through one of them. Events, smart, sponsored, if special events are one of the 5 elements. So you can download that and check out the other 4. And then finally, I publish a weekly video tip. It comes to you via email every Thursday. It's called the Productive Fundraising Weekly Journey. Usually a 2 to 3 minute video tip. We try to have a little bit of fun and give you one quick tip each week that you can do in your organization. There's usually a free resource download like some of the ones we talked about today as well. So that's how you can connect with me and stay in touch. We'll leave that website up there at the bottom. That's where you get everything, and we will open the floor for questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Chad. That's awesome. Woo. We can hear the claps from all around our service territory. Okay, we do have a few questions. And definitely thanks to Chad from Patty. You have given me much to think about.
Great.
And excellent and very appreciative for this event and for the follow-up materials. And definitely I'll send a follow-up email to all those folks that joined us live and anyone else that registered. The links to Chad's resources. You'll receive a recording of this webinar automatically. So all of those resources are there for you to use and share. So let's take a few more minutes. We have a few minutes left to ask any questions, or if you have any comments. If you would like to be live, we can unmute you as well. We want to hear from you. So take this time to use Chad's expertise, and we can work from each other. We can learn from each other. So let's open it up for a few minutes here. Come on, guys. Come on, Joe, Michael, Patty, let's go, you guys. Questions or comments?
And if it's easier to ask than type, I just use that raise hand feature, and we can try switching the audio to you. So I'm tired of talking, so you guys can gladly do so.
All right, we have Michael. Michael, we're going to unmute you. Go ahead, Michael.
I had an experience where I asked I don't want to name names, a relatively large financial institution in the area to sponsor an event. And well, I did it through one of their branches. I talked to the branch manager, and the branch manager checked with their chief of sponsorships and said they really didn't see our event as fitting their model because it was just a one-time thing. Later on, I saw the same company sponsored something that was not even local, and it was certainly a one-time thing, and it just sort of, it annoyed me. Mm-hmm. So what do you think went wrong?
Yeah. Well, that tells me that, for you, they were following the rules. They have set rules that say, we want year-round recognition with something. We don't do one-off events. We only support these certain kind of things. So they have those rules because they get way more requests than they have dollars for, and it helps them to kind of weed through that. So that's what happened with you. With the other one, my suspicion is that there is an insider there, another branch manager, or oftentimes a vice president or regional president that says, we are going to support this. I like it. It is done. So I think somebody probably played a power card on that one that had a tie to that organization. That's one of the biggest issues that corporate sponsorship folks have, is that they have these rules that they want to follow to put their pot of money out, but oftentimes those rules get usurped by the people that have the power and say, no, this is what we're going to do because I say so. And oftentimes too, it can be clients too. Perhaps that organization was a big client, they didn't want to lose the account. I mean, oftentimes business gets involved here. So the way around that for you is really relationship building. I mean, finding ways to build relationships and higher up the chain. Anytime we can do that, helps sometimes get those rules pushed over for us a little bit as well. But yeah, that would be my guess. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Michael. All right, we have a question from Patty. Thoughts on bid boards, Chad? Bid boards.
Thoughts on bid boards. Patty, Patty, a little more clarity there. Are we talking, I've heard that term used multiple ways. Are we talking online or the actual paddles we're using? If you prefer to speak, just raise your hand.
I'm going to unmute you, Patty. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, Patty.
Am I coming? Hey. I was at an event where they did a bid board, and I was really pleased with how it was done. It was a large board, and it had the numbers 1 through 100. And under each number was a line. So say my bid number was 50, and I wanted to make a $100 donation, I could write my number 50 under the 25 and the 24 and the 1. So it would add up to what I wanted to bid. And I found that people didn't want to fill the bottom line in, the 95, 96, 97, 98. They wanted to kind of play the game. But once you filled the board, I believe it was, oh my gosh, I don't remember what the math was, so I apologize. And so I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that. It seemed to be a lot of fun for those that were bidding.
Yeah, I haven't seen that that format done, but I see how that could work. I mean, it's a little bit like a fund a cause where we're taking direct donations, but might work in a situation where there isn't a live auction or a live auction wouldn't work. So yeah, I could see that working. You know, it sounds a little complicated, so you know you have to have somebody there that can explain it and make sure it's going well. But yeah, a little unique, and like you said, has a fun element. I've also seen people do in the silent auction, they'll do an item that is, you know, basically a donation, but for something specific. So, you know, purchasing a case of diapers, you know, and it's $73.50. You know exactly what it is. It's your hard cost. And they just write down their bidder number that they're going to purchase a case of diapers to restock the shelf. Like whatever critical need is going on right when you're there. So easy way to pick up some direct donations that way as well. What I have seen with bid boards is there's a technology feature now at some big events where I've seen folks that you can actually do text to give. Basically, they text their amount and they can have a projector up with it has a live thermometer, and as they're talking, the bids are automatically raising. So you can see, you know, just exactly how much has been raised. So another way to do a fund a cause and can have people do that, you know, while they are actually still talking about where the dollars are going to go. So, but no, thanks, Patty. I like that bid board idea. I'll have to check that out a little more.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, you had your hand up. I can unmute you. You did share a comment. So many good thoughts gleaned from this webinar. Key points to you, experiential, lots of possibilities. Obviously being a dinner where the meal is based on the demographics in your community. That's awesome. Joe, we do want to hear from you, so I'm going to unmute you now. So go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, that was my comment. I'm thinking, you know, a lot of good ideas gleaned from this from Chad. It's fantastic. I mean, I'm undiagnosed ADD, so I'm getting all kinds of.
My apologies. Your brain will stop buzzing by mid-afternoon, I promise.
I got 5 pages of notes here, but yeah, most of the notes are what I've thought about because of it. But the sponsorship, I mean, that's so key too. And the thing is, you know, you think of sponsoring an event, but so many things that you don't realize are events. For example, we're planning to do a chess program for kids because I think chess is such a great thing to develop strategy and organizational skills. But that in itself becomes an event, and you don't realize it's an event. It's not an event that you're inviting donors to, but you invite donors by inviting sponsors to sponsor that event.
Right, so yeah. You know, and I say any event is sponsored. I agree with you. Any program is sponsorable too, you know, and oftentimes, especially for the ones that don't care about the recognition as much, they'd rather directly sponsor a program and get tied to that, and they have direct access to see the impact. I mean, and that can be as simple as you invite them in one night to just kind of observe, or, you know, there's a pizza party at the end of the program, something like that, where they actually get to see the impact of their sponsorship right on. So it's more like a direct donation. We're just calling it a sponsorship, and lets them talk about the impact they have in the community that way. So yeah, great input.
Yeah, very good.
Thanks.
All right, any final questions here? We have a couple more minutes if anybody has anything.
Perfect.
Well, is that Joe's hand again, or is that?
I think it was already.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
we're good. All right. We're gonna do a going once, going twice, and sold to the highest bidder. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining us today. Thank you for partnering with the food bank. It's always a pleasure to work with the great people here, and thank you for the work you do in your communities. Greatly appreciated. So, have a wonderful day. Back to you, Maria.
Thank you. Chad, thank you for sharing your expertise and your knowledge with us. I know wonderful participation for those that joined us live. Thank you so much for your questions, your comments. As I said, you'll receive the follow-up presentation, the links to Chad's resources. So thank you again. Thanks for all that you do. And an evaluation will pop up on your screen before you leave. Please take a few moments so that we can share comments with Chad and for future workshops or webinars. Many thanks to all of you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. We're signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.